Hi guys, welcome back on the channel. On today's video we're going to have a flip through review of On Bloody Ground Mass Combat Warfare rulebook from Wargames and Miniatures. They were very kindly sent to me by David and Daniel Toon, if I pronounce the name correctly, a father and son team that are the authors of the rules. And I had a quite extensive read, and I hope I will do them justice, because I think they're quite innovative rules, and actually I think that they can be used very easily for my Baron's War big battle that I've been looking recently, except obviously the skirmish game that you've been seeing on the channel lately. So basically now we have two rule books, LC dan Reconquista that you see here, and we have the Norman Conquest. Now the core rules are the same. There's not a big difference, but the special rules and weapons and some characteristics of units are different. That's why they have two rule books. Actually, it's quite good because you're basically saving money. They could have very easily have a rule book and then provided army list with special rules. In this case, you get a full rule book with quite a good number of army lists and special rules. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to flip through the LC dan Reconquista. The other one is Norman Conquest. As I said, it's the same core rules but different special rules. If you want us to do a separate video for the Norman Conquest, please, if I see interesting in the comment section, we will do it in a subsequent video. So we start with the credits written by David and Daniel Toon, with the help of Matthew Toon, John Silk, Steve Toon, and Megan Goff. The illustrator of the Reconquista Soldiers of Islam is Chris Craig, the original painting. And special thanks to playtesters and friends who supported the authors. Now, a very welcoming site. Obviously, it's always contents. There are two content tables at the end. At the beginning, at the end is more detailed, but this helped me tremendously while I was reading the rules to go back for reference without searching around. So you start with notes on gameplay and how you get started, the base sizes. The authors use individually based miniatures on trays. You can very easily use your own armies regardless how they're based. You know that's now very easy. Basing really doesn't matter. Instead of removing miniatures, you can basically add tokens or have a die showing the hits or the wounds. It's something very easy, so it doesn't matter really the size of the bases you use, but this is how the authors are using for their armies. So you start with common game terms, you have core game rules, you have the leadership tests. Then we're talking about facing, and it's common facing of 45 degrees from the corners of a unit. It's the front, the rear, the left flank, and then you have line of sight, block side, and obscured side plays important role in shooting and in charging and hand combat. Then you go to the game turn where you have the initiative. The initiative is a straight D6 face-off, but then you have quite an innovative rule that has to do with change in initiative, and the opponent tried to take the initiative from you, and you're trying to resist by taking leadership tests. And the turn is basically you declare the charges, you move, you shoot, and then you have combat. I will talk about the rules in general, and I will focus a little bit in things that are, for me, quite innovative and fun. So you have the charges. What I like about the charges is that they're not obviously a certain thing. You have failed charges, so you have a die roll in order to add the distance missing from the actual maneuver distance. We'll talk about this in a while. So you declare your target basically, and then you have the target reactions that can be a stand or evade. The charge reactions could be counter charge, and then you move chargers. You can do a pivot before the charge, and if you don't succeed, you have a failed charge where you just move at the specific number of inches and you stop. You have disrupted charges, where if you're probably shot at and have 25% casualties, the charge stops. You have charge bonuses, and here we'll go and talk a little bit about two very innovative rules: coordinated charges and multiple charges. So if you have two units that are want to charge an enemy unit, a single enemy unit, at the same facing, so the frontal, you can take a leadership test and both units can charge the opponent, something like support. It's quite interesting coordinated charge situation. I like it. And you have also multiple charges that if you want to charge an opponent from different directions, again, you get a leadership test, and you can charge simultaneously from different directions, being obviously a very devastating attack. The opponent, in both cases, can react, but only to one unit, the unit that he decided to react to. He cannot have two reactions. He will have one reaction. So these two rules I found quite innovative and actually quite fun. Here you have pushing into combat. If you have units already fighting your opponent in the flanks and you want to attack in the front, but there is a part of your units that are blocking you from touching your opponent's side, your opponent's miniatures, you can push them out of the way and attack and get into contact with the enemy unit. Then you have movement, and as I said, you have the maneuver rates of different types of units. Infantry, formed infantry is 4 inches, skirmish infantry 5 inches, formed cavalry 6 inches, skirmish cavalry 7 inches, commanders 10 on foot, and mounted commanders 14. These are the maneuver rates, and any opponent that is outside of these rates, you roll a random d6 and you add it to this rate. So basically, you know that if you have a formed cavalry with a maneuver rate of 6 inches, the longest distance you can attack is 12 inches. A unit can maneuver. Basically, it can march. It's double the distance of your normal maneuver. It can pivot around its center axis. It can shift 2 inches front, back, rear, left or right without any penalty. And you can, talks about other movements through terrain where you have a specific section for this. Now you go to shooting. Now shooting and combat, they have a very innovative, in my opinion, mechanic. You declare the targets, you determine the attacks. Depending on the weapons you have, you can shoot with 1 rank or 2 ranks. Then you roll to hit. There are obviously negative modifiers, like if you move during a turn, if you have block line of sight or skirt line of sight. We talked about this at the beginning. You can use must archery. The target has shields, the target has barding, it's -1. But then we go to the armor save. So basically, your opponent, depending on the type of armor he has an armor save number. So when you roll for wounds, and let's say you succeed, when you roll for hits, you are the shooting unit, and let's say you succeed in inflicting 5 hits. Then your opponent uses his armor save or die to defend these hits. Let's say the opponent defends 3 of your 5 hits. The 2 hits are not automatic wounds. There is a wound modifier that you, as an attacker, have to roll now to see that if these 2 hits that passed through the defense of your opponent, through the initial defense, will actually wound. This is a quite innovative procedure that I haven't seen before, and you will see during the game that we'll play at the end of this flip through, that it works quite well, and it provides quite interesting and fun results, and very accurate. So you roll to wound, and if you wound, then you remove miniatures, or you can put some type of casualty markers. So you're removing casualties. You can shoot into combat. That's quite interesting rule, but you can wound your units as well, and you have massed archery. In hand-to-hand combat is the same. You can align your units so you can have the highest number of units fighting each other, of miniatures, determine the attacks, and roll to hit. Roll for armor saves, remove casualties, roll for armor saves and wounds, remove casualties, and work out the combat result. So you align, And then you roll to hit. Again, you have negative modifiers depending on the shields your opponent has, or if he's attacked in flank or rear, or he has budding. Then you hit depending on your hit number. Then your opponent, depending on his armor save, he saves. He tries to save your hits. And then you roll for wounds. The successful, the hits that pass the defense of your opponent, you have to roll to see if they actually will wound you. There are some obviously wound modifiers, and then you remove casualties, and then you go to the combat score. Now the combat score is where you have basically the resolution. Who won will give you the result of your melee reaction. So if you inflict 2 hits to your opponent, 2 wounds, and you remove 2 casualties, and your opponent removes 1 casualty, then you add your rank bonus. Every unit, depending on its type, has rank number, and the maximum for every unit, for example, for infantry is 3, cavalry 2, light infantry 2, and light cavalry 1. So depending on the rank you have, and in order to counter rank, you must have more than 5 miniatures in this rank. You add your rank number to the hits number. So let's say we score 2 hits and we have formed infantry with 2 ranks. Let's say 1 rank is removed. We have 4 points. Our cavalry has 1 rank and inflicted 1 hit. It has 2 points. So 4, 2, we won by 2. So this is how you calculate the battle resolution. Rank bonuses with cavalry. In the initial charge, cavalry, when a formed cavalry is charging with lances, rank bonuses don't count until you get initial combat result of stand fast. And we will see this in the example at the end of the video, and I will explain to you how it works. So now you have the combat results. The winner gets a momentum modifier. So if you win the combat, you get 1 modifier. Attacking the flank or rear, you get flank 1 modifier. Attacking the rear, 2 modifiers. And this modifier, in the initial combat, let's say we won the combat previously, so we get 1 momentum modifier, will be added to the required die of your opponent in order to pass a leadership test and see the reaction. So we lost the previous battle. Our opponent gets winning the combat modifier of 1. We have a leadership of +7. We have to roll above +7 plus the 1, the momentum modifier of our opponent. So that's +8. We roll 2d6. If we pass the +8, then we stand fast. And that means that melee stops. It's finished. It's a draw, or we manage to stand fast, nothing happens. If we fail, so if we roll a 6 and we need an 8, that means we are pushed back 2 inches, and the melee continues to the next round. And if our opponent wins again, he will get another momentum modifier, so he will go to 2, and that will make our leadership test even more difficult. And there is a third if this continues without units getting wiped out, or our opponent managing to fight back and win a hand-to-hand combat, and that would mean that we start again from he gets the momentum back. And this will continue if we have 3 consecutive pushbacks, and then you force your opponent to take a break test. So depending on the reaction, the melee continues non-stop unless your opponent stands fast, where melee stops, continues non-stop for 3 rounds, the maximum, until you take a break test. So for example, a unit that has won 3 consecutive rounds of combat whilst attacking an enemy in the flank will have accumulated a momentum modifier of 4. The enemy is required to take a break test and rolls a 12. Their insane courage has allowed them to stand fast and end the round of combat. All momentum is also removed, so there is a chance to fight back. So then you have routed units who, if a unit is routed, have to take a panic test within 6 inches, a surge move from the victor, a move after your opponent is destroying, and you have drawn combat. So these are the core rules. What's really, really interesting and fun, I think, and they have quite innovative. Here is some examples of how units would look. You see the mounted have 2 rows of 5. These are heavy formed cavalry. You can see foot that usually have 3 or 2 rows of 6. They can have also 3 rows. Here, as you can see, the spearmen, and you have examples of commanders. Now we go to nice photographs actually. Now we go to how you create an army, and we go to the essence of the rules that give this very special characteristic that I like. So how you create an army, and here are your commanders. They have command points, they have hit points, they have wound. It's exactly like a unit, and they have special rules, and they have keywords. So you have also commander profile. He can be a commander-in-chief, a prince, standard bearer. You can have a bishop. There's a lot of options we can see in the army list. So we're talking about command influence, 12 inches for a general, 6 inches for the other commanders. We have how the commanders are joining units in combat, how they get killed, how you rescue your commander if he's captured, how you can kill your opponent's commander. And here are the command points. And this is where things getting exciting. So every commander has a number of command points, usually 2 or 1. These command points can be used out of sequence to give orders or intercept orders from your opponent. So, for example, if your opponent gives an order, you have the possibility to counter this order, intercept this order, kill the messenger, and this order will never happen by using your command points. At the same time, these orders you see here are orders that can be given out of sequence in order to change the battle momentum. So, for example, let me give you an example. Every order, this for example here, hold fast maneuver, has a bracket with the number 4+. That means that a commander has to roll 1d6 above 4 in order for this order to take precedence, not to take precedence, to be able to be followed. So every commander has, let's say, one commander has 2 command points. And suddenly, during his hand-to-hand combat, a unit of his opponent invades to a position where another of his unit is there. But he hasn't declared a charge in the normal sequence of the game, but this is a great opportunity to attack it. What he does, if it is in his zone bound, what he does is that he gives an order outside the game sequence. He has to charge. So a unit that has not previously declared a charge during the current turn is able to declare a charge. So he finds the opportunity. He sees the opportunity of this evading unit that now it's close to him, and the unit that has not declared a charge during the charge part of the game sequence has the opportunity to charge and change totally the power, the balance of power on the battlefield. So he rolls, he uses one of his 2 orders, he tries to roll 5+, and if he succeeds, he can charge out of sequence. The same here, you can redirect a charge, or you can shoot out of sequence, or you can support attacks, or you can hold the line. That means that maybe you will win hand-to-hand combat, but you've pushed your opponent once already, and now you are among enemies after pushing him back 2 inches. He's aligned with another 2 units who are further behind. You don't want to continue pushing back because you will find yourself, as I said, among enemies and you can be outflanked. So what you do is you give an order out of sequence and you tell your unit, hold the line and don't continue, don't follow the pushback opponent. You need to roll a 4+ in order for this order to be followed by your troops. You use 1 command point, you roll, let's say you roll a 4+, and there you stand and you hold the position. So during a pushback move, if the winner of the combat is engaged in a single zone, it will remain in its current position rather than being moved with a pushed back enemy. The round of combat will end and any momentum is removed immediately. So you see, these orders is one, that's why I have an extensive discussion about this. Very, very innovative idea. It reminds me the opportunity rule of impetus. Now you have units. What's a unit? And the unit profiles, the name, the type, the weapons, the hit value, the wound value, leadership value, armor value. The arms and armor, special rules and keywords are important in order for you to be able to follow the battle. So armors and armor, we have special rules for different armors, for bows, crossbows, for example. The range 24, close range is the half of the distance. So the bows can shoot in 2 ranks, for example. The crossbows, only 1 rank. You have, for example, lances. Lances give a -1 negative modifier to the defense of your opponent. You have cavalry spears with other advantages, thrusting spears, throwing weapons, shields, bucklers, large shields, barding. The barding horse gives another negative modifier to your opponent's attack. You have padded armor, light armor, medium armor. So you have all the weapons here for the specific era. So the Norman Conquest book will have different weapons, and the same and extra, obviously, for the Normans and the Anglo-Saxons. And this will be part of your hand-to-hand combat. We will see how they work, but they're basically modifiers and advantages. Here, keywords again. Keywords mean special rules. For example, camels, attached, combined formation. That's a quite interesting rule. You can have 2 units combining in like a block formation, and they get extra special rules that support the ranks and the die rolling. Quite a good rule, this. Actually, I like moving in combined formation. It's a quite innovative rule. It doesn't give extra dice because obviously not everybody's fighting in such a deep formation. But what happens is it's impossible for you to lose a rank bonus or to lose a dice because the authors consider that although you don't mix the units, that the unit from the back is closing the ranks, is closing the gaps, so you don't really lose any dice or you don't lose any rank bonuses during the rounds of melee. So quite nice rule. Expert horseman, feint flight, formed unit, inspirational, different rules and keywords. This you will find under your units or commanders characteristics in the army list. So here you have the army list, and here you have, for example, the army composition, command units, mercenary units, list restrictions, special rules, determined assault, and what allies you have. These are Christian Spanish. This is the first army list. It's quite a lot. Then you have Almoravids. We'll focus in and see how an army list. You can see in your screen how an army list looks. Here you have Al-Andalus, later Christian Spanish. I use this for Baron's War, I can imagine. You can use them. Almohads. I think this is it. No, we have late Andalusians. And here is terrain and how, and examples of how terrain reacts with movement. And how you choose your ground, how you deploy your armies, vanguard deployment, special objective, standard deployment, rapid deployment, defensive deployment, and how you win the battle. Obviously, if you capture a commander, a general, an army standard, you get points. But also, you have these special objective cards. So these special objective cards, they're given, and without, obviously, your opponent knowing, and you have one kind of micro mission within the battle that will give you extra victory points. That would mean maybe killing the best unit of your opponent, or maybe capturing the standard bearer. So this is quite interesting little objective cards. And then the index here, the last index I was telling you about, with more details where you can find the special rules. So this is a flip through, guys. Let's go to the terrain, fight hand-to-hand combat so we can see how it works, and let's conclude afterwards. Okay, guys, so now we are at the battlefield, and after the flip through and review of the rules, we will fight a short hand-to-hand combat sequence to see how they work. We can do more workshops. These rules are quite interesting, and I think they will be very appropriate for big battle, Baron's War. But now we're going to have a look at hand-to-hand combat and try to do some variation so we can see more special rules. So we have Baron's Mounted Knights, Baron's War, first Baron's War Mounted Knights. Probably I'm going to use the army list for later Christian Spanish. They're exactly the same period, although the authors were very kind and gave me their own army list for Baron's War, and I'm going to use. But currently, let's use the current army list. So these are the attributes of military order knights. So now, as you can see on your screen from the army list, they have either thrusting spears or lances. So I will go for lances with a hit of 3+ and a wound of 4+. And they have hand weapon of a hit of 3+ and a wound of 4+. After the first charge, the lances cannot be used, and the hand weapons are used. Now, I will probably exchange the light armor for medium armor, and also the special rules that this unit of mounted knight has is that it's formed unit and has a shock impact of 1. We're going to explain this during the battle. They have a leadership of 6+, an armor of 5+, and 22 points that really, at the moment, it's not relevant to us. So if we zoom in a bit, we see the commander that we're going to use. We're going to use probably a general. He has 2 command points. He has a hand weapon that hits with a +3 and wounds with a 3+. He has a superior armor of defense of 4+, and this is how I'm not going to give any extra attributes from the options you see here. If we go now to the spearmen, who will probably be spearmen of the Baron armies, of the rebel armies, I'm going to use from the army list probably the guard spearmen. So they have thrusting spears. They hit with a 3+, and they wound with a 4+. You can use thrusting spears if you like, and they have light armor and a shield. They're a formed unit. Now, they will be commanded by an officer that, as you can see here in the army list, has a keyword attached. That means that the officer has to start attached to the unit, the center front. So here is the officer that he's attached to the unit. He has a hand weapon that hits with a +3 and wounds with a +3. So we're going to roll separate dice. He has a superior armor of defense of 4+, and he doesn't have any command points. And as we said, the keyword is attached. So he's going to be attached. Now, what you see here, so we understand, we have 3 ranks of 6 miniatures. So we have 18 miniatures for the spearmen, and we have 2 ranks of 5 miniatures. So 10 miniatures for the mounted knights. And depending on the weapons and the units' characteristics, it depends how many dice we will roll. So let's start and see how the battle will develop. So let's say that the initiative is with the mounted knights, and I will put this transparent red dice here to know that the initiative is the mounted knights. The mounted knights decide to charge the spearmen, and the spearmen have to declare a reaction, and the reaction will be stand and fight, stand fast and wait for the hit. Now, first what we check the distance, and we check if the distance is enough, their maneuver distance is enough for the mounted knights to charge, or they need to roll an extra die and see if they can cover the remaining distance if their maneuver is not enough. So we know that the mounted knights have a maneuver of 6, and this is exactly 6, so we don't need to roll a charge dice. So immediately the mounted knights charge. The spearmen will be in a defensive position. They will stand and take the attack. So let's do the moves. So the mounted knights charged. Now the mounted knights, because they are formed cavalry and they have a lance, they attack with both rows. Usually units, depending obviously on the formation and the weapon they're having, usually they're fighting with the miniatures that are in contact, direct contact, base to base or corner to corner. But special weapons and special formations give extra die rolls for subsequent rows. So mounted knights, because they're formed and they have a lance, they will attack with both rows, so they will roll 10 dice. We know that their hit number is a +3 from the army list, but because the spearmen have a shield that gives a -1 to the attack die of the opponent, they will hit with a +4. So let's roll to hit with the mounted knights, who roll 10 dice and they hit with a +4. And they have a 6, another 6 and a 4 and a 4 and a 5. So we have 5 possible hits. But when a unit is charging, it re-rolls all the failed attack dice. So the Baron War's mounted knights will roll the remaining 5 dice, and they need to hit with a +4 as before. So they re-roll. That's very important, an advantage you get when you're attacking. And they roll another 6, 4, and a 6 and a 4. The one is failed, so they roll 4 +5. So they roll 9 hits that the spearmen have to defend. So the spearmen have to defend. They have a defense of +5 because of the light armor. But because the mounted knights have a lance, they get a -1 modifier. So they defend with a 6. So they will defend all 9 hits with a 6. So let's roll to see. They need 6s in order to defend the hits from the mounted knights. And they roll 1 6. And all the others are failures, a terrible disaster. But the lances are very powerful. Mounted knights, Baron's War mounted knights are very, very powerful. So all these are, again, possible hits. Now we're going to this innovative idea of the rules. Now, these hits that they have not been defended, we're not sure that they're wounds. So the mounted knights have to roll 4+ in order for these hits to become wounds. So the mounted knights, the Baron's Royalist mounted knights, need a 4+ in order to translate these hits to wounds. So they roll a 4, a 4, a 5, and a 5. All the others are unsuccessful. So 4 wounds against the spearmen. That is a terrible, terrible disaster for the spearmen, who now will fight back. So 4 wounds against the spearmen. We will remove 4 bases and we'll put them in the back so we can use them for our calculations. 1, 2, 3. These are very beautiful miniatures from Futso. 4 miniatures are removed, but the spearmen now will fight back, and they will fight back obviously without counting these 4 bases because the melee, as we said, is simultaneous. So let's go and see the spearmen and their attributes. Now the spearmen have thrusting spear and they hit with a 3+. Now the mounted knights, as we said, have a shield, and the same as happened before, they give a -1 negative modifier to the attack of their opponent, so the spearmen will hit with a +4. But if we go to the weapons section, and we will see that the characteristic of thrusting spears, and all other things that we're not going to discuss now, it's not applicable, formed infantry are able to attack with up to 3 ranks. So that means that the spearmen will attack with all 3 ranks, and that is 18 miniatures, and that means 18 dice plus the officer that will have a separate dice, 19. So the spearmen will attack back with 19 dice. Now, we know that the mounted Baron's War knights have barding. When your opponent has barding, it means that you get a -1 to hit modifier from combat attack. So that means that they will need now a 5, not a 4, in order to hit. So they have -1 for the shield and -1 for the barding. They needed a 3+ to hit. Now they need a 5+. So 19 miniatures at fighting, but you need a 5+. So let's go and see. It's quite interesting. You have, the bulk of the dice, but you need a 5+ because the mounted knights are well armored. So here we are, 19 dice. The red dice for the officer, although he hits with a 3+, he gets the negative modifier, so he needs a 5+, so it's not a big difference, but regardless. So let's see if I can manage with one hand to pick them all up. It's very, very difficult. So let's roll. We need a 5+. So 5+, so we have quite a lot of 5s. Let's remove the ones that they're not. Oh, there is good roll. decent rolls. The commander didn't manage to hit anything. The 4s are out. These guys are not attacking, so they don't reroll. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 possible hits against the mounted knights who have to defend now. They have a defense of armor of 5+. They have 5+ defense, and they need a 5+ in order to defend these hits. So they defend quite well. Ooh, they defend almost all, and only 2 remaining. So 5+ defense for the mounted knights, and we have 2 hits that manage to find target, but we need to see if they will wound. The spearmen have a wound die over 4+, so we need to check if they will be able to inflict 2 wounds. Oh, and they inflict both. That's great for the spearmen, and that means that's excellent. I was not very expecting this, and this means that 2 mounted knights will be removed, are dead, and now we have to go and check what's happening, the combat resolution, and see who won the battle, and see their melee reactions. So 2 wounds for the mounted knights. Let's remove them, put them in the back. Here, let's put the commanders, let's put them a bit further, so we know that these are 2 wounds. And now let's go and see what is happening. So put the commander somewhere here so we don't get confused. Let's see what's happening, and let's do the battle resolution. So we have 4 hits against 2 hits. Now, this is a special situation, and I will explain to you why I did this. In any other circumstances, you add the hits plus the complete ranks of your unit. That means the rank should have at least 5 miniatures. So here would have added another 2 ranks. So you have 2 hits and 2 ranks, 4. The spearmen would have 4 points, and the mounted knights scored 4 hits and have only 1 rank complete. So they would have scored, they would have had a 5. So the mounted knights would have won. This is how it's done, and in most circumstances. But in a situation where formed cavalry charges, until you get a battle resolution result of stand your ground, there are no ranks to be calculated. If I would make sense of this rule, I would say that when the mounted charge and when you continue fighting, it's chaotic. You know, they break the ranks, they enter inside some units, they divide the soldiers, it's havoc. So until both or one actually unit from the 2 participants of the melee reorganizes and stands its ground and manages to reorganize itself, the ranks are a little bit muddled, a bit confusing. So it's something that makes sense in a medieval battlefield. So let's read it exactly as the rules say. Rank bonuses and cavalry. Where a formed cavalry unit has made a successful charge move into combat, no rank bonuses are applied for any units involved in the initial combat or any consecutive combat until a stand fast result is achieved. So we don't count the ranks, so we count only the hits. The spearmen have scored 2 hits, and the mounted knights had scored 4 hits, and this is obviously a victory for the mounted knights, and the mounted knights will get 1 momentum modifier. We put it here with the micro dice. So we remove our casualties out of the way. They're not valid anymore. We use only to calculate. And this is now for you to see. And now the spearmen have to take a test, and in order to see what will be the combat result. So they need to take a leadership test, and we know that the spearman leadership is a 7, plus the momentum number of their opponent. This changes depending on the number of victories you have in the hand-to-hand combat. So they need a 7 plus 1, they need an 8. If they had the commander here, and let's zoom in a bit. So if the spearman had a commander here except officer who had command points, he could have used one of his command points to re-roll this leadership test if this leadership test fails. So if they failed, they didn't roll an 8 and above and they rolled a 6 or a 7, the commander, if he has command points, and as I said, an officer doesn't, he would have been able to give one of his command points and re-roll this leadership test, something that many players use, from what I understand from the authors. So now we roll and see if the leadership test and what will be the reaction of the spearmen. So the spearmen will roll a leadership test using 2 dice, and they need to roll an 8 and above. Their leadership number is 7. They have a 1 for the momentum of their opponent, so they need an 8. They don't have a commander that can help them to reroll if required. So let's see. And they roll a 5 and a 4. They roll a 9, and they are successful. They are successful, and that means they stand fast. And that's where we change everything. The test is passed, and excellent reaction from the spearmen. The test is passed, the attack has been halted, and the round of combat will end, and any momentum will be removed immediately. So we finish the combat, the momentum is removed because the round of combat is finished, and then we go to the next combat. Now, if the spearmen failed, and that means that it would have been pushed back 2 inches, and they would have had to remove extra miniatures as the number they failed from. So, for example, they had to roll an 8. If they rolled a 6, that means they were -2. They would have to remove another 2 miniatures, and they would be fall back 2 inches. And the mounted knights followed through this. They pushed them back. They would have a second round of melee, and this would continue until either a unit breaks, they will take a break test, or is wiped out up to the 3rd round of consecutive melee, or the unit stands fast, passes the melee, as we saw here, and melee stops, hand-to-hand combat finishes, and we resume in the next round. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked the rules review and flip through and the examples. I consider this a very, very nice rule set. I'm going to use it for my Baron's War for sure. I think it's innovative. I think the orders rule that are, that out of sequence of the gameplay are a really innovative idea. I like the idea that you roll 3 times in hand-to-hand combat or shooting, you attack, your opponent defends, and then whatever is not defended, you have to roll to see if it's actually wounds or it's failed again. So I like this innovative idea. I think the combined attacks and the coordinated attacks is a brilliant idea as well. I think it's a really, really nice rule set designed by 2 gentlemen that basically wanted to have a rule set to fight their battles. And I think because it's in cases like this, it's like a labor of love. Usually you can see that this was a game that was fun and was enjoyed by the guys who designed it, and it was not only for commercial purposes. And I tell you, I really, really enjoyed the rules. So this is from me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see the normal conquest, that the differences will be the keywords and the special rules, we'll do a flip through for this, and we can do battle examples as well. Thank you so much for watching. I have all the links on the Facebook page and the website and the YouTube channel for WIP games, whip games and miniatures on the description of the video below. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye. Have a great week.